I realized that it's not what you know, but it's who you know. I decided right then that I was going to go into real estate, and it's taken me to places, and it's brought me friendships and people that I would have never met, and I'm so grateful for that because it really changed my whole life.
Welcome back to the Full Out Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Mark Faris. Today, we are speaking with Rocco Manfredi. Rocco started the Manfredi Group. He has 2 full-time support. He's got 3 agents, so he's got 5 total that's working with him. He does around 100 sales a year, and his average sale price is between $8 and $850, and he works the Ottawa, Ontario market in Canada. And he's a really good friend, just a down-to-earth, just solid guy, and a phenomenal businessman. Rocco, welcome to the show.
Mark, thank you very much for having me.
So, Rocco, when we met, we were at a chairman's retreat for Royal LePage. So it's like the Remax of Canada, so to speak, for the American listeners. And you and I, we'll call us rookies in the top 1%. There was around 16,000 agents across the company at that time, and we were the newbies, and we're sitting there, and all these big dogs were walking in. And when I say big dogs, the top 10 in the entire company, and they were walking by, and we were kind of in awestruck, and we built a relationship at that point. I saw how down to earth you were, and just a solid guy, but a real great business guy as well. And through the years we stayed in touch, and continue to build a relationship as well. But Rocco, so it's really great to have you here. Appreciate your friendship.
Thank you. Same here, Mark. I enjoy our friendship right from the first day.
So, Rocco, maybe before that happened, before that chairman retreat, when you were, in the top 1%, that award and that event that we had went to together, take us back to your origin story and how you got going in real estate, and how you got through that early struggle phase.
So I went to Carleton University in Ottawa, and with the intent of becoming a lawyer. And I was going to go get my Bachelor of Arts from Carleton and then go to Ottawa U for law school. And it was funny that in second year, I sat in an auditorium of 300 people, and I would always sit in the back so I can get out quicker. And I sat next to this gentleman who we started becoming friends after a little while. But this gentleman, the jean jacket, the ACD, marijuana patches back in 1985. And, we struck up a conversation, and he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to go to Carleton, and I'm going to get my law degree. And he said, well, so am I. And I looked at him and I thought, wow. And he said, yeah, my father owns a law firm downtown, and I'm going to go work with him after. And I realized that it doesn't matter how much I study, this guy has a job already. And it made me realize that it's not what you know, but it's who you know. And it's funny because at that time I was reading a book called The Art of the Deal. And the majority of the world's millionaires made their money in real estate. So I decided right then that I was going to go into real estate for a couple of years to learn the business and then build my own portfolio and in my real estate empire. I never got out of real estate. It was a career that I've loved, and I still truly enjoy it every single day. And it's taken me to places, and it's brought me friendships and people that I would have never met. And I'm so grateful for that because it really changed my whole life.
Yeah. Well, that was amazing that you had that experience of, what made other millionaires that way. And that's a great lesson to learn. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And then, you went to where are most amount of millionaires being made? And it's in real estate. And so that was an amazing aha moment. I think some people, they find that out later in life. They realize that. Now, going from a law degree into real estate and getting into that business, take us through that first year and that early struggle. And was there any points along the way where you're like, I don't know if this is the right fit for me?
No, I've never had that thought. I started when I was 21, right out of university, and I went to go work for a company called Campanelli Real Estate. 3 brothers from, I believe, the Sault Ste. Marie area came down to Ottawa, started a real estate firm. They were very big on training, like cold calling, forcing us to make at least 100 calls a day, and not 100. You had to speak with 100 people, and they checked the sheets and they checked you every day, and you had to come back after dinner if you didn't hit your target. And then they made you do open houses. They made you door knock. Um, they made you go after FISBO. They literally went through the gamut of whatever needed to be a real estate agent. Old school, but old school that really still sticks till today. The same rules apply.
Mm. Yeah. So that got you through that early struggle of not having enough business standpoint. So how long did you have to do that, or was that something you just consistently did at the beginning until you were just so busy that you didn't have enough time because you were servicing it? How long did you have to do that before you started to see traction?
I did that for a year. I did that for almost about 11 months. And, you know, it didn't work at the beginning. You got a lot of rejection and you got a lot of people yelling at you, but we weren't allowed to quit. And thank God, because then that's how I got my first listing. That's how I made my first listing ended up my first double end sale. And that's taught me throughout my career because I always find a lot of agents, they go on their computer and they look for properties and wait for it to come out on the market. Where I was trained that, don't wait for it to come on the market, go out and find it. And majority of my sales were double ended in the beginning of my career.
So how'd you do that? So how'd you go out and find potential, say, buyers for a listing? And that was maybe different from the rest of the market. What was your approach with that?
Well, so I started to meet people, and at that age when you're early 20s, some people had a little bit of money and they wanted to invest in real estate. So they would tell me, we want a little home or we want a duplex in this area. And I would get out we had used to have a book that was about 6 inches thick, and it was listed every street in Ottawa, and it had the phone numbers and the people's names. Not that we didn't have to worry about the do not call lists. We would just sit there and go through the streets and call the people. And my line was, listen, I have an active buyer. I'm not looking for a listing. I have a buyer looking to buy a house. If you want to sell, we can do something. And majority said no, but the odd one said, well, if I got my price, I'd sell it. I said, what's your price? And well, you tell me. I said, well, listen, I'm not the buyer. I'll bring my client by, take a look at it, and then if he likes, we'll bring you an offer. We do that. I didn't have a listing. We'd go show the property, write up an offer, go see him, and made him sign the listing before he looked at the offer. And you know what? It really trained me very well.
It's so smart. It's so smart. You actually you did activities and you took massive action at the beginning, and it built the skill set, I would think, because it was the same for me when I started. I didn't have, like, I'm more of a natural inward, and I didn't have the skill set to be able to go out and talk to a lot of people. But it was just, I built that skill set by by actually getting out and doing it more and more and more, and it got less and less awkward as time went on. And so it sounds like that's what happened with you as well. It's like you built the skill by taking that initiative, and I'm sure those skill sets have, you've only built on that as the years go by, having that strong foundation at the beginning.
Yep. Yeah, it really helped me. Like, and that took me. So when we got trained in residential real estate, multifamily, land development, industrial, retail. One of my good friends, his father had a little construction company, and they literally ran it out of the backyard garage, but to the point where they grew and they needed a warehouse. So I did the exact same thing looking for warehouses. You just went around, and a lot of people would put up a little private for sale sign, wanting to sell, and it's easy pickings when you actually have a buyer.
Mm, yeah, no, that's really good. What I would do is I would call down the street of a listing and I would say, hey, listen, I have a listing. It wasn't even my listing when I started, it was our company's listing. And I would call down the street and I said, hey, we got this listing. We, as in our company, have this listing down the street from you. And we're looking for buyers for this. We want to, do a really good job for a seller. Do you know anybody looking to move into the area, maybe a friend or a family member? It would be nice to be able to pick your own neighbors now, wouldn't it? And then they get a little chuckle out of that. And they'd say, no, we don't know anyone. And then I'd say, well, have you thought about selling? And it started the conversation, right? And so I think the key is it doesn't even really matter what it is you say. It's just you need to get more reps in. And I want to underline, like, a really important point here, that I think that the biggest disconnect in real estate today is what agents think they're doing and what they're actually doing. And what I mean by that is the number of conversations they're having with potential buyers and sellers on a weekly and daily basis. I think if you were to ask the average agent, are you how many hours you're working, they would say, "Oh, I'm working, 50 hours a week." But then when you ask them how many conversations have you had with potential buyers and sellers that week, you would get a number. But then here's the magic, and this is what I call like the truth telling method, the truth telling method, and that is if you track yourself on a weekly basis with the actual number of conversations, how does that differ from what one thinks their conversations are? And generally, it's like the numbers, the tracking will be the truth telling mechanism for your week. And there's a big disconnect out there from what I see is what agents think they're doing and then what they're actually doing. And that is the biggest indicator of how many appointments, how many agreements, and how many firm sales. So if you're not doing sales, there's a high likelihood that you're not actually getting the conversations in. And the biggest and the best way to be able to, we'll say, have the truth smack you in the face is to start tracking it on a weekly basis.
Yep. Yep. And the end results. It's all about the results in this
That's
business,
right.
right? So you
Yeah.
can you can do everything right. It doesn't mean you're going to hit the results.
Yeah.
And
Well, and yeah.
I was fortunate that I got trained by I got some advice from some good agents in when I was young, and I
Mm,
try to give back to the young people. And I'm hard on them. I mean, I just tell them the truth. It's there's one young guy agent in our office, and I tell him, did you make your 5 calls today? And they always come up with, well, I'm going to do it later, but I got busy, and I'm well, no, that doesn't matter. Don't give me excuses. It doesn't take long, right? And I'm always on him, like in when he shows up to the office like at 11 o'clock, I said, I hope you had an appointment because too late. And sometimes they just sleep in because they went out the night before. And I get it. But, the problem with this business is that you're not accountable to anybody but yourself. And unless you're strong enough that you can make sure that you're in there every day at 9, 8:30, 9 o'clock, you're going to fall off the cliff one day because you're just not going to put enough in there to get what you want out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go down that a little bit further, Rocco, in regards to mentorship and training. So you had some really good, we'll say, counsel at the beginning, trainers, coaches that they were hard on you. They told you the truth, and you had given the example for yourself. For the agent that's coming in 11 o'clock, like you're tough on them as well. What do you think a agent that is maybe in a brokerage, how would they get that kind of mentorship and leadership? Because like accountability at the end of the day, having somebody there, we'll say, pushing you to do things that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise done on your own. What kind of advice would you give them to be able to get that kind of counsel and advice and coaching?
I think like picking an office is very important, and like I base my success on the fact that I got trained so well at the beginning. Like I just made so many deals of not being afraid to go talk to people, not being afraid to knock on doors, and not being afraid to open conversations. The young agents, they're scared. You can see it in their eyes. You tell them that you need to go door knock, and they look at you like you got 3 heads. It's like, well, I said, listen, get out there, get you have to separate yourself from other people. If they see your name at open houses, if they see your faces at their door, they're going to remember you down in the future. And the hardest thing is that they don't take the training that they should. And I'll be honest with you, Mark, I fell into that trap. Like when I got into the business and I thought, okay, I took my course, I know what I'm doing, and the training that our company sent us on were just parties. We drank till 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. We'd skip the first half of the seminar the next morning because we got in too late. So I missed a lot of training that I should have had that I didn't, and I make sure that the young agents don't do that.
Mm, that's really good. So the office that they're about to pick, if they're going to say interview, what would the approach be to make sure that they select the right office?
What I would look for and what I tell them is pick an office that offers good training, like that's actually going to care about you. The second is I always say go look and walk around their office, because I've been into a lot of offices where the doors are always locked, and offices where the doors are locked, they don't communicate with each other. They're worried about somebody stealing their leads. I've always been in offices where the doors are open, where I'll walk by and you have the real estate conversation. I'm getting a listing next week and it's coming out on this street. And he'll go, you know what? I think I have somebody for that. And sometimes you make the deal before it even gets on the market. But if you don't have that communication as a young agent where you can go in and talk to everybody, how are you going to get the experience? How are you going to get the knowledge? So that's very important in picking the right office.
Yeah. No, that's critical. Your environment that you put yourself into is a big determinant on you either drifting towards success or away from success. It's interesting when you go in and you interview the manager, that's definitely one of the key players. Other key players I'd say is the front receptionist. Rocco, how many times you walk in and you have to an office and maybe the receptionist is just rude? Well, that's probably what your clients are going to run into. And, if you can build a really good relationship with the receptionist, there are times where there's gray areas where maybe there's nobody in the office and there's a lead that calls in and, bringing coffees to the receptionist is probably a really good thing. And, she'll treat your clients a little better as well.
I tell everybody that. I said, the most
Yeah.
important people in your office are the girls at the front,
Yeah.
guys or girls,
Yeah.
because those are the people that are going to help you when you need help. And they've helped me over my career. Like sometimes, you need an offer typed up in an hour and they're leaving in 15 minutes. You know what? If you treat them right, they're willing to help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. The other one that I found to be really helpful is the broker of record. So your lead broker, when you get into some hot water, man, I don't know about you, Rocco, but for me, when you have like a bulldog as a broker of record or your head broker, man, like, does it ever make your life a whole lot easier when you got some backup when you need it?
It does. It does. And I've had some great managers over my years and they've always had our back. Now, mind you, we haven't really gotten in much trouble. I mean, there's the odd deal that might go sideways, but I've been lucky and blessed that I haven't had to worry and use my managers and have those bulldogs behind me.
Yeah, yeah. It's more, it's like I had this one time where there was multiple offers and I called the other agent and I said, "Hey, listen, we got 5 offers now on the table." And it was a verbal conversation. And my lesson is I didn't follow up with an email telling them it was the 5. And then, it goes through, they didn't get the deal. And then after the fact, they found out, I guess there was 5 offers again. And she came back and said, "You didn't tell me." I'm like, "We spoke on the phone." And she's like, "No, you didn't tell me. I'm filing a complaint with Rico." I'm like, "Okay, I learned my lesson. My bad. I should have followed up with an email, even though I had the voice conversation." So you run into scenarios like that. It's like, the paperwork, drafting everything up, going through the whole thing. It's that support system's been really is really good that you pick the right one and you think about these things before making your selection. Yeah, and the other one is that I'd find it was really important is, my first deal was through a big dog in our office when I started. So they had, more leads than they could handle and he ended up referring one of the buyer leads and I converted it. So I paid him a referral, 25% referral, and I kept the rest. That's how I did my first deal. And so you do a good job with connecting with other agents in the office that are open, sharing ideas, but also potential business as well. I think a lot of agents, when they're selecting their office, they don't think about that. So, I don't know. Has that been your experience? Have you seen that as well on your side?
Um, I've been lucky to work at offices where everybody's been pretty helpful, like the front staff, the agents, the managers, and they all had open door policies. Like, I mean, we didn't have an official policy where you had to leave your door open, but they were all people who had their doors open and ready to talk to you anytime. And right from early on my career right on to now. And, I just hate when I see locked doors. Now, if you're in a private meeting and you got your door locked, that's okay. But for the majority, our office doors are always open.
Mm, yeah, that's really good. That's really good. When you're starting, these are all things that, it's tough to know. And that's where even calling a few agents or asking for the manager to actually make a few introductions to some of the agents in the office before you make your selection. Like you can go out and ask to have a coffee with a few of the agents and just get an idea. Are these the type of people I want to hang around with? Because once you make your selection, the goal is like there's some agents that change office to office to office. It's like changing their underwear versus like when you go in, do your research ahead of time, make one selection, and then once you make your selection, the goal is to like take 100% responsibility yourself for your success and not blame the office. But doing your research ahead of time sure does save you a lot in the long run.
Yeah. I've met some agents that made the wrong choice, and you met them afterwards, and it's like, oh, you sell real estate. I did it for a year and a half, and I hated it. And I'm like, oh, why'd you hate it? And it's like, oh, I just terrible experience. Like the people we were working for, they there was no feeling. All they wanted to do was make deals, and they just kept pushing us. And that's the difference. I mean, everybody runs their career they want way they want. There's transactional agents and there's relationship agents. I'm a relationship agent. I don't try to make 200 deals a year. I'd love to, but I'd rather make sure the clients that I have, they're 100% happy and have less deals with full 100% happiness in my clients than make more deals and have 5% of them that were ticked off.
Mm. Rocco, that is one of your superpowers for sure, is building relationships and networking. So I'm going to say a story, and then I'm going to circle around with a question for you. So I did a speaking engagement in Ottawa at this real estate event, and while I was there, I called you up, Rocco, and I said, "Hey, I'm coming into town," and you're like, "Oh, great, let's go grab a dinner." And you ended up giving there's a Senator NHL tickets, and so we went and saw a game. And one thing that I noticed with you, I was watching you, Rocco, and we sat down, we came in, next thing you know, you're talking to one, two people on the way to sitting down. And then in between intermissions, it was immediate. You didn't even think twice. You're like, let's go for a walk. You intentionally got up, you started walking around in the intermission, and you must have had every period, you had like 3 or 4 conversations with different people. And you were just like networking, speaking, and moving on and building relationships. And that was something that you innately did. And it was like I got to see you in action from that. And so what advice would you have for the listeners out there? One of the best that I've seen at networking, to be able to do that successfully, to build into relationships, and be able to, as a byproduct of building those strong relationships, gain more business.
Yeah, you have to get out there. I mean, everybody knows 3 to 5 agents, and out of sight, out of mind. I was lucky in the sense when I got into real estate, I was 21 years old. Me and my buddies, we literally went out 6 out of 7 days a week, like literally. And I did a success panel once, and they said, where do you get your business? And I thought about it, and I'm like, I get my business from clubs. And they're like, oh, like you mean like the YMCA or book clubs? I'm like, no, no, clubs, like bars at night. I go out and I just meet people. You're in. Everybody loves to talk real estate, no matter where you go. So I tell young agents, do not stay at home at night. I used to get in my car, Mark, and I'd back out of the laneway and I decide, am I turning right or am I turning left? Whenever which direction I decide, okay, who do I know that lives in this area of where I'm driving to? And I'd call up and say, hey, you guys home? I'm stopping by. And then from that, you know what? Some of them we'd meet up for a drink at a restaurant, and then you'd see somebody else that you met. And you need to basically get as many people you can to talk real estate. I never start the conversation. I mean, everybody always starts because the problem is that when you get a little bit of success, everywhere you go, that's all they want to talk about is real estate. And then some people get, okay, let's not talk real estate anymore, guys. Let's just try to have one night. And it's like, no problem. I don't want to talk real estate. But somebody will circle around and say, hey, listen, can you call me tomorrow? Because I'm going to be looking for a house. We're getting married next year. So get out there. Don't stay home.
I love that. So just going, knocking on doors, or basically giving a quick heads up, hey, I'm dropping by, and just starting the conversation up, and not even talking real estate at the beginning. Let them start the conversation and the topic, and then eventually they'll probably circle it around to real estate because they know you're in it.
I've never went to talk real estate with anybody, and I'm lucky that I know people that are business owners, and I have a circuit, Mark, and people laugh at me. It's like, how many coffees did you have today? So I'll go visit a guy that has a little deli. Go visit a guy that owns a restaurant. I know about 5 or 6 people that own restaurants, so I'll try to go see them in a week. I'll spread it out, but every time you go there, it's like, hey, you want an espresso? It's like, sure. And some days you're like 6, 7 espressos in, but it shows that I had 6, 7 appointments that I literally physically saw someone face to face.
You would have your, we'll say your rotation. So business owners, is that a market that you seem to really like hone in on, that building relationships with business owners?
I like to support local business. So if it's somebody that I know, I'll go by there to support them, and won't I won't talk real estate. It's they're the ones that bring it up, or somebody that works in it. Like I've been referred many times to somebody who's an employee at the business that I go visit, and they said, "Listen, by the way, they're going to be looking for a house," and they bring them over. They introduce me. I give them my card, and they call me when they want. You have to get your face out there, and I'm that old school guy where you can send emails, you can send text, but there's nothing better than looking somebody in the eye.
Mm, that's so good. And especially in today's market, especially after COVID, it's like there's a lot of people that prefer just to be in their home office and just hope that business is going to come along. But yeah, I was told once when I was younger from this veteran agent, he's like, he drew these two half circles, yeah, that were facing each other, and he's like, this is a belly to belly business, Mark. And the point is, he was saying is like, you got to get out, talk face to face to people, with people. And there's a lot of wisdom in that, and it seems to be that's one of your we'll call them your superpowers, that you do in order to generate business. And it's coming from this genuine, like, hey, listen, I'm here to support you. And the natural byproduct of loving on those people is that they want to send you business back. Mm, yeah, that's really powerful.
Well, I'm lucky in that sense because I mean 85-90% of my business is all referral. It's all my old clients, their kids now, their relatives. I mean there's families that I've literally sold, you know, 12 between brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins, 12, 13, 14 people in that one family. And that means a lot. The fact that they refer you means a lot to me.
Mm. Okay, so Rocco, there are people listening, agents listening to this show right now, and they're like, okay, that sounds good, Rocco, but you know everybody, it's easy for you. Okay, so here's the ask. You're a new agent, you're moving into a new market, so you don't know anyone. What would be your activities that you would do on a weekly basis in order to start generating business with your, we'll say, your networking approach?
So if I'm moving to a new city, and I've had this conversation with other agents, and what they've done, and I know that I would do open houses Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
I would get
Well,
as
like
many
one a
signs.
day, or two each day, or one, or
I do one on Sunday, and one on Saturday, one on Sunday.
got it.
There are agents that did two on Saturday and two on Sundays. I would do that. I would get as many signs as I can, only for the effect that when people are driving by, they may not go to the open house, but they'll see your name. They'll see your company and they'll see your name. Then door knock and say, we did an open house. We had a really good showing. There's people that are active buyers, and, or just drop it in their mailbox. Again, when they look at it, they're going to see your name. And then what I would do is I would hang around with some of the top agents, and, take them out to lunch, or meet them for drinks after work, because they're going to know people. And if you're around them, you're gonna be basically associated with them. And there's an old saying that my mother used to tell me all the time. Show me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you're going to be. And if you hang around that, and you're outside in a bar, and they see you with that person who's a top agent, well, they're going to think this guy must be pretty good. So even if they don't use you, there's that association, and you wouldn't get that if you're sitting at home doing nothing. So just get out, join, whatever, church choirs, join coaching football teams, baseball teams, soccer teams, uh, sponsor a soccer team. I mean, a friend of mine said his kid needed shirts. So they wanted two sets, and I got two sets of shirts. I've heard people in the soccer community say, "Hey, I saw your name on the back of a shirt." A friend of mine, client of mine, asked for to sponsor, and I did. Oh, great. And, next year they're calling, "Can you sponsor my kids team?"
That's so good. That's so good. Okay, so there you're doing the door knocking, you're doing the open houses, you're sponsoring kids events, you're going out. Now the question that some would say is, okay, do you, like, when do you start talking real estate, or you just basically going back to what you had said, you don't bring up real estate. Eventually they're going to ask you what you do, and then you could tell them, and then it's just about being around. Do you ever intentionally kind of, you know, we'll say drop it in there that you're in real estate and give market expert advice? Or when you bring up about, because that for some people, some agents, it's awkward for them to say, I'm in, by the way, I'm in real estate, and if you're thinking about buying or selling, they're like, I would never say that. But what would be your approach in, say, dripping that in so that they see you as a market expert?
So for me personally, if I didn't have a buyer, I would never tell someone that, listen, I know there's a home in your area, but I have a buyer looking in that area. So, but if I did have a buyer, I'd have no problem saying, hey, listen, there's a house down the street. I showed it to my buyer. He didn't like it. But if you know of anybody else that's thinking of selling, let me know. And they'll go, oh, you're in real estate. Yeah, I've been in real estate, for X amount of years. But you have to have that buyer. If the one time that you get called out on it, you're going to look like a fool. And that, to me, your reputation is everything, and your reputation will follow you your whole career. And you know, my dad used to tell us something, and we never understood it, me and my sisters. He said, you know what? You can do 99 things right, but you do one thing wrong, they're all wrong. And we never understood what he talked about. And he wouldn't explain it to us. But then we finally realized, well, it's the 99 things on reputation. You can do 99 things right. You do one bad thing in your reputation, you've just wiped out years and years of building your reputation.
Mm,
So you
yeah.
have to stand behind. You have to stand behind what you're saying. If you have a buyer, you better have that buyer.
Mm. Yeah. So use that buyer that you're working with, and actually, when you're speaking to your network, you can use that buyer as a opportunity to say, "Hey, listen, do you know anybody thinking about selling? Because I have this buyer looking to move in this community." So then the byproduct of that is they see you that you're actually successful, you have buyers, and you're doing a good job for your buyer as well. And then the byproduct of that is they know you're in the business, and that you're good at what you do. Mm.
People always want to help, and if you literally have a buyer and they're saying, "Listen, I have a young couple getting married, or I have an elderly couple wanting to retire into this, and there's a lot of nice bungalows," most people will help and say, "Oh, that's what? Let me think about it. And if I think of anything, I'll let you know."
That's really good. I really like that. It's a very simple approach, and you're right. And even asking for referrals, I found when you say, "Hey, listen, I'd like to ask you for a favor," or you're like, "I have a really big goal this year, and if you could do this for me, that'd be great." Like, people, they want to help you, and if you just ask for it directly and don't beat around the bush and do it from a place of confidence, like, you better believe that they're going to want to do that. And I think a lot of people, they kind of steer away from that because, like, I don't really want to bother them or put anything on them. But people feel good when they help other people. And if you give them an opportunity to help you, it's almost like lowering yourself in front of them and saying, "Hey, listen, you know, I'm humble enough to ask for help." I think a lot of people, it's like they're coming from a place of, "Oh, I don't want to see like I need the business," but asking for it, if you do it in a place of confidence, it's like, I'm looking to help more people because I got something that's really good that really needs to be utilized. And I think that's a different place, and it's all about how you ask
That's right. And who you ask.
and
Some
who. Okay,
the,
can you elaborate on that?
well, it's a very small percentage of people that don't want to help and don't want to be bothered.
Mm,
Whereas the majority of people are helpful, are kind-hearted, and they will want to help you, see you succeed.
mm, yeah. So making sure you're picking somebody that you believe is reciprocal and has a good head on their shoulders is what you're saying. Is that right?
Sometimes you don't know, and you find out and they
Yeah.
surprise you. But that happens in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta get the door slammed in your face,
That's right.
so to
That,
speak.
that's
But you
that's
don't.
very true.
Yeah. What
But
I
like you
heard it
said,
saying.
it humbles you.
Yeah.
That
No, it's
those
good.
ones humble you, and you have to stay humbled in this business
Yeah.
because I've gotten into a lot of situations where we're real estate agents, and I live an amazing life. Like I said, my career has brought me to places and met people like yourself and many others around the world. And where else can you find that? And I tell them, listen, we're real estate agents. We work hard, but we're not doctors. We don't save lives, but we help people make the biggest decision of their life.
Mm, yeah, that's really good. I've heard a saying that you out of, say, if you keep asking people more than once for the close, say if you ask 5 people, 1 out of 5 will get upset with you, and you're going to sign 4 extras just by being persistent. It's like you keep throwing a little rock at your friend's window when they're sleeping. It's actually in the Bible. There's a verse there that talks about that. You keep throwing the little rock up there. Eventually, they're gonna. And you keep asking for them to open the door. Eventually, they'll come down and open the door for you just by persistence. It's like much rain wears the marble. But sometimes you get that 1 out of 5 that gets upset and yells at you, and the key is to keep going to get the other 4, right?
That's right. Well, cold calling was something that taught us really early because like there were some people that really just yelled at you and they, you know, but you know what? You gotta, say your apologize, do your apologies and say, I'm sorry for bothering you. I won't call you again and move on to the next one.
Yeah, what helped you get through to actually make that next call after getting yelled at? What was it for you that said, "Okay, I'm going to get back on the saddle"? Was there anything that helped you?
It was just like some people, like we said about helping, some people get, bothered just because the phone rang. So you can't let that get to you. You like there's many different types of personalities and you have to understand all of them. And that guy might have had a bad day that day. So you can't take it personally, just let it go.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that seeing things from the other person's point of view, or having perspective, that I really like that. That's something that we tell our frontline reception a lot. It's like if somebody's yelling at you, they're upset. Like they could have had a family emergency that day, or maybe their spouse just left them, or they found out they had, a health issue. And, I think putting yourself in their shoes of what they could be going through takes a lot of the sting out. Um, the other thing that was helpful for me, it's like I knew if I had 100 conversations on calling down a street just randomly and cold calling, that I would book 2 appointments. And so I knew that if I had like 90, we'll say 98 no's, and they were hard, I knew I was going to get 2 yeses along the way. So it was just a numbers game for me. It was like I knew, okay, no, no, no. Oh, the next one, yes, is coming. It's coming. It's coming. And that, if it's just a numbers game for you, then you don't. It's not about them not liking you personally. It's just that it was the interruption, and I think that kind of helped me to keep going to get my yes.
Yeah, I live my life by what you just said. I live my life by putting myself in other people's shoes. I always look at both sides of the equation, whether it's a seller and a buyer. If I got the listing and the buyer's coming, you have to look at it from both sides and angles to understand it.
Mm, that's really good. Yeah, that's really good, Rocco. I think that's what would make you an excellent negotiator.
I mean, it's helped me be a better negotiator. I'll be honest with you. And people have asked me, like, there's in Ottawa, I think we're up to 3,400 agents, and people ask you, why should we deal with you? And I say, well, the one thing is I got 38 years of experience, and I pride myself for being the best negotiator that I can be. I've helped my clients make the right decisions, and listen, we've all seen it, right? There's agents that I mean, when COVID was hitting, agents told me, he goes, if my client's not putting the offer 150 over asking, I'm not even writing it up. And I'm looking at him going, you don't even know what the house is worth. I mean, how do you? But like I said, that's their business. My business is that I look at it from both sides, and negotiating is definitely a strength with me.
Mm. That's really good. Now, are there any examples of, say, negotiating advice or tips when you go into a negotiation? Is there anything that you do consistently that has helped you through the years?
I always talk to the other agent. I always have a conversation with the other agent to understand. Like emails are great, texts are great, but you do not get the right uh, feelings on an email and a text. So I call the agents and I have a conversation with them, and you build a rapport. And it doesn't always happen because, like in this business, there's a lot of strong egos and there's a lot of strong attitudes. And I have a saying that I've based my business on is that I will lose every battle, but I will always win the war. And to me, winning the war is making sure my client gets the house or making sure my seller gets the price that they want. So you can think you got one over on me, or you can take the lead as much as you think, but at the end of the day, the war is going to be won by me and my clients.
That's really good. It's I've seen it many times through the years where it's a battle of egos and the clients end up losing, and they want the house, but the agent drags all the drama of what happens in the negotiation into their client's life, and the client gets upset with it, and then it gets tainted on the house, and then they miss the house, and then they got to go after the next one, and then it's a horrible experience because the agent didn't do a good job at filtering everything for them.
Yeah, I went on a listing appointment last week and a half ago, and both they had two houses to sell. The wife picked one agent, and the husband picked the other agent. And they said that they both had horrible experiences because the stress that the agents put on them was incredible. And I was shocked. I'm going, the agent's supposed to take the stress. The client should never have the stress. And I make that a point of my when you're dealing with me is that I will take the stress. I will deal with all the problems. You will just be informed on what's going on along the way. And that's important because like it's a big decision for people, and a lot of people can't handle stress or adversity or this type of atmosphere that we're used to and we take it for granted. You really have to bring them down to a level of, okay, listen, everything's going to be fine. I'll take care of everything, and don't worry about it.
Mm, yeah. No, it's really good, Rocco. And I think that's the difference between a pro and an amateur is the pro filters it. And when they communicate to the client, they're telling them what is important, what they need to know, but they're not getting into any of the drama that's going on. They filter everything through that. So they make the experience for the client excellent. Whereas I think with the amateur, they're pulling all the drama in, and they think that by communicating it in a exaggerated way, which I've seen this before with other agents, is everything is exaggerated, and then the client they blow this, it's like blown up from the agent, and it's just overall it's just not a professional experience, and I think that's what differentiates the pros from the amateurs out there.
Yep. And we can all see who the pros are. You deal with them every day, right? I mean, it's funny how you keep dealing with the same agents during the year, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good. So Rocco, you're a consistent guy and just super, we'll just say you're consistent is probably one of the best words. And I would also say like network and relationships. But for yourself moving forward, are there any habits or consistent routines that you do on a daily basis that has helped you be productive through your career?
I believe so. I mean, I always say I'm my own worst enemy. I put goals on myself, and I try to achieve them. And I am a creature of habit. I get up early. Like I mean, we've been on more than one chairman's retreat together, and 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning after all the events that we did the day before, I'd see you at the gym all the time. So, there would be three or four guys that are at the gym every day. And I start my day off at the gym, 6 o'clock, do my routine, get home, have breakfast, change, and, get to the office at 8:30 or go see one of my business owners or clients or friends and just start my day. And, consistency is very important in this business. You got to make consistency the habit to succeed.
Mm, yeah, that's good. Another thing, Rocco, that I found about you is you have a very pleasing personality. And what I mean by pleasing is it's easy to be around you, and it's not hard. Like you make it comfortable for people. What recommendation or suggestion would you have for an agent that wants to improve in being likable in a setting of people to be able to say take that to the next level? Because I think that's really important for clients that they're around people that they genuinely like. So what advice would you have for the agents listening out there?
I've never been confrontational. I find there no reason to be confrontational. I've always looked at things from both sides, and everybody has a bad day. Everybody has a moment that, they probably say something that they shouldn't. And I get along with everybody. Like, I mean, because you have to understand what somebody's going through. If you don't understand what somebody's going through, you're going to basically point them as a negative, and that's what you're going to build on. And I kind of look at always I always look at the positive. People tell me you're Mr. Positivity or Mr. Positive, but there's no reason to be negative. And I find that when you hang around negative people, there's always those undertones that are always it always ends up in a confrontation of some sort. Now, don't get me wrong. I love having conversations and I'll pick a side. Sometimes I'll pick either side, the opposite side of the other person, just to have a conversation. But there's always a limit and always a point where you don't want it to get out of hand. And I've never had that. I mean, in whether it was in real estate or whether it's personal relationships, friendships, family, anything.
Mm.
My mother always used to say every time I went to school, get along with everybody. Make sure you get along with everybody every
Yeah.
single day.
Smart mama. So,
Yep, very smart.
Rocco, there are days where you wake up and you feel like crap, right?
Yep.
There's you had 5 deals from the day before that fell apart. You're a little bit achy that day. You threw your back out. Maybe finances are a little tight. Just things aren't going great, and you just wake up and we'll just say there's the negative tone that easily creeps in. What helps you stay positive on days like that?
The beauty of this business is that what you put into it, you will get out. So I know it's up to me to change that. I know that if 5 deals fell apart, well, you know what? I might be able to salvage 2 of them or 3 of them even. In my mind, I'm going to salvage all 5, but sometimes you only salvage one. And that one is the one that you're saying, okay, you know what? The other 4, I always say that there's a reason things happen. And you may not see it at that time, but the reality is that as dark as it seems, and as negative as it is, sometimes they happen, and you won't see the positive point of it until years later. I tell everybody to watch that speech by the Stanford speech by, oh my God, now you know what brain
Jobs, Steve
yeah, Steve
Jobs.
Jobs.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you look at the guy got fired from the company that he created, and it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to him.
Yeah.
Like, you can't plan that. You can't
Yeah.
plan these things.
Yeah. No, it was pretty phenomenal what he did when he came back. How he cut out, was it like 90% of all their products they were doing, and he just focused on the 10%. Powerful
It,
principle, by the way.
but it was incredible. But I mean, he started Next, which was the reason he got hired back to Apple, because it was a component that would help Apple. And then he started Pixar, which he sold to Disney for like what, $4 billion. And but the most
Yeah.
important out of that, though, he met somebody who became his wife, and he started a family, which he never would have done if he said
Mm,
if he wouldn't have been fired from Apple.
yeah. That's
So
such a
you can't worry
yeah.
about the bad days. The bad days will go away.
Yeah. No, and it either builds grit and muscle where, looking back at the hard times that I went through, it built the muscle so that I was able to withstand the pressure of that next level up. Looking back when I got waived, I walked in one day, I was playing down in the Central Hockey League down in Texas. And I walked in one day and the coach called me in and he said, "We put you on waivers." And I walked into the change room and my hockey equipment was in a garbage bag. And basically I was just married and I flew back home with Joanna and I didn't know what I was going to do. But then a number of months later, I got into real estate, and I would have never got into real estate unless I was put on waivers. And looking back on that shift was the best, one of the best moves in my life, even though it seemed like the worst move at the time. And so I think there's a lot of cases like that. If, for the listeners and probably for yourself as well, Rocco, you're going through hard and you look back and you're like, you know what, something really good came from that. So I really like that concept of, there's going to be something good that comes. There's a reason for everything.
Yeah. For new agents, I mean, listen, it's a struggle when you're a new agent. I totally get it. But you know what? Look in the mirror, and if you tell yourself that you can do it, and ask yourself, are you doing enough to get out of it though? Because, a lot of people lie to themselves and they show up to the office and have coffee and talk to people for 6 hours and say they had a good day. That's not a good day. You got to do the work.
Yeah. And it's good to know that everybody that's successful today, they did the work when they started. So there's not like anybody gets a free pass in this game. Like they had to go through the hard at the beginning. So it's not just like you that's going through it. Everybody needed to go through it. And you got to be able to pay your dues in order to get to that next level. And paying the dues is doing the activities, the massive amount of activities to be able to build a business that can sustain, long term. gain. Yeah.
Yeah. For new agents, though, they should go up to the top agents in their office and starting out and say, listen, what do I need to do to be successful? I've told them, I've listed, I said, this is what you need to do. And my wife was my admin when we started off. And she said, why do you tell them everything you're going to do? And it's like, well, because I know they're not going to do it. She goes, what are you talking about? You know who's going to do it. You know who's not going to do it. I tell everybody the same thing. This is what you need to do. But majority of them won't do it. They just kid themselves.
Rocco, is that similar to what you said earlier about the open houses and the door knocking? Is that what
Yep.
you tell them? That's the same
Yep.
thing.
Yep. I tell them
Yeah.
open house. I hate open houses. Well, okay. Do you hate being broke? I mean, what's better?
Yeah, that's good. So if you want to do Rocco a favor, do the things that Rocco suggested earlier in the talk here, and then send Rocco an email and say, "Hey, I did it. I'm the one out of 1,000 that's actually doing what you told me to," and make his day.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So in my office, I like to do training for young agents. And I did one, and our manager at the time, Brian, after he came up to me and he said, Rocco, this was a very emotional speech and the class that you gave. I said, why is that? He goes, because everything you said, my father told me 42 years ago. And I'm like, okay. So this business that we're in, we're not creating anything. I mean, we have different ways of doing it, but the old school approach, cold calling if you can, door knocking, open houses, flyers, just sold, just listed. And then I tell agents, take the just sold. I sold a property in that area. Go and just deliver just sold. You know what? If you get any leads, take them. And they won't do it.
I won't do it. Yeah, that's really it's so powerful. It's so simple. It's not easy. It's so simple. It's the consistency that does it. And going back to the biggest gap that I see in this business is the difference between what people think the agents think they're doing and what they actually do. There is a massive disconnect there in the industry that it really needs to be like there's a flashlight that we got to like shine on this. And the tracking, we'll call it the truth telling mechanism or method. It'll tell you the truth very clear as how many conversations are you having, and doing the open houses, doing the door knock, you're doing the cold calling, regardless whatever it is that you got to get more conversations in, and like networking, for example, what you're doing, just get out and do it. It's simple, not easy.
That's right. I told agents that like there's a bunch of new agents that start at the same time. I tell, you guys should buddy up with somebody and make sure that you keep each other accountable. You got to, make a list of the things you have to do, and at the end of each week, make sure that each of you have done it. They don't even do that.
Yeah, yeah. I would say it's harder today than it's ever been because the amount of distractions are way greater today than they've ever been. Like with social media now, like your inbox with email and text is just the starting point. It's like you got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got YouTube now, you got like Twitter or X, and you got TikTok and all like you're constantly buzzing and you're constantly operating at this level of surface rather than actually getting out and doing the work. So I don't know about you, Rocco, but I think it's harder today than it was when we started, because when we started you just had the flip phone, right? Your text and email, and you didn't have as many distractions, we'll say, barking at you.
It is. You're 100% right, but at the same time, there's so much information and knowledge and wisdom out there that for you to learn something that we would never have had that opportunity. Now, there's so much things on YouTube that you can do to help you become a better real estate agent. And instead of scrolling on Instagram, so it really depends on what you do with your time. I love those motivation. Like I spent hours and hours and hours with Earl Nightingale and Les Brown and all these motivational speakers, and it's the same stories over and over. Just say it said a different way, but they're powerful. But I read this story once, and the story was that this guy's friend's father was a billionaire, and he said, he invited him over for dinner, and his friend went to the kitchen. He said, "Can I ask you a question?" He goes, "How did you become a billionaire? Like, I mean, it's so hard to become a billionaire." He says, "Well, it's not that difficult. All you have to do is just do it." And the kid looks at him and goes, What do you mean? He goes, well, listen, a lot of people take the courses, a lot of people read the books, a lot of people do all the knowledge stuff, but then they never put it to practice because there's that fear. Like, I mean, I tell my girls, I say, listen, there's two things. You're either afraid to succeed or you're afraid to fail. Everybody has one of them. It's how you can get over that and make sure that you can take it to the next level. It's like where we are now, and it's not that it's easy, but we make it look easy because we literally do the same thing over and over, and we did all the hard stuff. A lot of people don't want to go through the hard stuff, and you have to. In life, you have to go through the hard.
Hmm. So good. There's a video. We'll actually put it in the link below, but it's from Art Williams, and Art Williams did a speech on just do it, and it was probably it's like we'll do the short, like the 5-minute one, but it was one of the best speeches because he just talks about just like exactly what you just said, Rocco. And it's a matter of doing what it is, what you learn is the key, and it's again, it's simple, not easy, so to speak. So Rocco, just yeah, go ahead, finish up.
Back to that. It goes back to that old saying, right? Like everything, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, you can tell a young agent what to do, but if he doesn't do it,
That's right. Yeah, so good. So just before we get into rapid fire, Rocco, so I know you're a big real estate investor and you've done really well through the years in that. What investing advice would you give a real estate agent that's out there? Maybe they have some money to invest today, or I say a client that's listening in. What investing advice would you give them today?
so again, when I started, this is the advice that I got, and the agents, the older agents, the successful ones, um, they were buying a property a year, a duplex or a triplex, one a year. They made some money. They took, now back then you could buy houses with 5% down payment, creative financing. Some of these guys were buying houses with 100% financing. But I tell agents now, I mean, they're, anywhere from 20 to 25. And I say, if you're 25 years old, and let's say, you're going to retire at 55 years old, that's 30 years. If you buy one property every 5 years, that's six properties by the time you're 55. And so I tell them that, real estate's going to give you a great career. It's going to give you a great life, but there's no pension. So you need to make your own pension. And for me, my family started in real estate. They bought their first rental in 1981. And I started to enjoy the process of it. And then that's when I went to university in 84 to 87 and realized that, you know what, I like the real estate. So I started building, my pension, as if you want to say, just by buying a little rental. And you can do whatever. I mean, I always said that to these people. I said, I'd always like to write a book about, how to be rich in real estate, but it's only one word, just accumulate. So it doesn't matter what you buy, whether it's condos, townhouses, a single family house, or a double, or a duplex, a triplex. If you accumulate enough of them over 25, 30-year span, by the time you're 50, 55, you'll be a millionaire. Now it's hard work. It's, you got to understand it, but we're in real estate. This is what we do. Now, some people, and the beauty of today is that some people are not hands-on. Some people don't have the connections like I have as far as plumbers, electricians, and, backhoe operators when there's a sewer leak. You know what? There's syndications, and there's a lot of I don't like. I'm not really big on mutual funds, but private syndications where and you can do your homework on them. You can look at their history. So it depends on what level. But to me, real estate still is one of the best investments that you can make. They basically tell you buy a property, put your down payment, the tenant pays off your mortgage. You go biweekly payments, and in 18 years, that mortgage is paid off. But you never want your mortgage paid off, because what you do after 5, 7 years, you refinance it and you just buy another property. And, everybody has different levels of risk, and are afraid of certain things. You got to do what's right for you. But I tell every new agent that.
Yeah, that's powerful and it's simple. And 90% of millionaires made the majority of their wealth in real estate. The average net worth of a homeowner, 210,000, the average net worth of a renter, 6,000. So, I mean, if it works just by owning your own house, it makes sense to just do one more and then one more and then one more. So, totally agree. And that's the same with me, Rocco. Through the years, we've accumulated real estate. We've made money in real estate it's selling it, of course, but where we made our real wealth was owning the real estate side of it. And what that also did, what I found for me, was it actually made me a better real estate agent. You could connect and speak the same language as real estate investors, and you can understand the, we'll say, the way that valuations work in across the board. Say even if something's like a split residential commercial, you can have a better understanding, and you help your clients make better investment decisions. If you're a real estate investor, you see things differently as well, so it actually makes you better at becoming a real estate agent. And so I go as far to say is if you really want to be a pro in real estate, owning an investment property is what will help you get there faster. And in my opinion on that side of it. So Rocco, this has been great. So you ready for the rapid fire? I got 3 quick questions here for you. Cool. All right. So first one is, which book has had the biggest impact in your career?
I'd have to say Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, powerful book. Cool.
I've listened to that 4 times already.
Yeah. Well, it's a book you keep getting more and more and more as you keep going over and over. It's funny what you what you get out of it every time you read it. Is just new things pop up.
Yeah.
All right. Second question: how would others describe you in 3 words?
I'd have to say loyal. I believe loyalty is very, very important to me. Hardworking and persistent. I don't give up. I just, like the joke was, like you're like a, when you got a listing and you got a seller, or you got a buyer that you got to find him a house. It's like a dog with a bone. You're not getting, no one's taking that bone out of your mouth. You're just going to keep going until you find them something.
Yeah, so good. Final question here for you is, what advice would you give a agent that's starting out, or perhaps they're in the business right now and they want to take their business to the next level?
Taking your business to the next level is doing what the successful agents in your office are doing. And you know what? I would buddy up with, successful agents, because, like, to consider us successful agents, like the problem, as you get busier, you got to, be careful what you wish for. There's only a certain amount of time in the day. So a successful agent can't do everything that they want to do. So if you know, take some leads from them, or split a listing that you're getting, just so you can learn, because if you can learn from them, you're gonna get the right habits from them. So hang around the successful people, and chances are you'll be the same thing, but you got to work at it. It's not going to come easy.
That's great. Rocco, so much wisdom here. And I think they say that if you know something really well, you can simplify it down to a simple approach. And I think what we shared today is really based around the wisdom that you bring to the field and to the industry. So thanks for your insight and counsel on this. And for the listeners out there, if they want to send any business, any referrals to you, you're in the Ottawa market, what's the best way they can reach out and connect with you?
They can go to my website, www.roccomanfredi.com. My email is rmanfredi@royallepage.com. And if not, just call the office, and I'll get back to you. And if anybody has any questions, like I always love helping young agents, because people helped me, and I always say you cannot forget where you came from.
Yeah. That's great, Rocco. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Mark, thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening, guys. My mission here is for you to become a full real estate agent, and together we can elevate the entire industry. If you like the show, please share and subscribe to the channel. I love you guys, and keep going full out.